Hi, I'm Tamara and I work at CCUA, and today we are going to do a kitchen side chat on bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, summer squash spotlight. So we are going to spotlight all of these beautiful summer squash that I think that everybody's gardens are just overran with right now. So this is definitely the month of the zucchini. I think neighbors are getting zucchinis, co-workers are getting zucchinis, zucchinis are growing out of everyone's ears. So today we're just going to talk about all about different kinds of summer squash, and we are going to talk about typically what you can do with them, what size is best to harvest, and then we're going to do a couple of short little cooking demos and talk about all the versatility that is with the squash. So I wanted to say that a note on mini squash is that they're typically, if you're going to eat them raw or you want to cook them with the skin and the seeds on them, typically they're better eaten when they're smaller. Now, if you get an award-winning 15-pound zucchini, don't throw it away or compost it. You can still eat it. Just if it's a huge thing and it has a very dense skin and it has a thicker, dense seeds, you will just want to peel the skin and then probably take the seeds out. There are specific squash, too, that are better if you take the seeds out, and we'll kind of talk about them today. So, I did want to spotlight all these beautiful squash because I actually got these at the Veterans Urban Farm. And I wanted to let you all know that tomorrow we are having a produce stand. Every Thursday through the summer, the Veterans Urban Farm will have a produce stand at the Veterans Hospital over off the stadium. So they're having it up in the main parking garage's parking lot, and they will have a variety of vegetables. So I wanted to kind of plug them a little bit and tell you, if you want some squash, I know where you can get it. So they have all three types of squash right here that I'm showing you, as well as kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, carrots, and okra. And then tomatoes and peppers and all of those kind of summer yummies are going to be later. So check back in a couple weeks and they may have those ready to sell as well. So awesome. So I just wanted to say that there are tons of summer squash. When I started doing some research into this, I realized I've never probably eaten all of these types of squash that are available, but I wanted to kind of go through them today. So everything I'm talking about today with cooking, you can do that with a typical zucchini, a yellow squash, a crookneck squash, a zebra squash, an Italian zucchini, a trombono, any kind of those kind of squash you can definitely do with any of these recipes. So the rule of thumb is anything under 7 inches is great to eat raw or cooked in any kind of normal way. The skin and the seeds are edible. If you're getting something that's 10, 11, 12 inches long and it's really huge, then it might be better if you use that either fried or stuffed, or if you use it for a soup or something like that. Definitely peeling it if it gets a harder skin, especially this patty pan squash. If you have a patty pan squash that's really large, it's going to have a really tough, dense skin, and you might even want to take out the seeds, and they're totally edible 100%. It just might not be the best experience. So, especially if you have children or somebody who's a little bit pickier, I definitely just want you to make the squash the best you can so that they love it. So, the varieties that I have right with me this one is a gold mine variety. It is still a zucchini, even though it's yellow, and I just loved how cute it was. These were a little bit smaller, and I just thought it was really cute. You're going to be able to cook it the same way you would cook any kind of zucchini. It's just a different color, and if you can see, it has these beautiful stripes, which I thought was really beautiful on both of these. And so this is your typical zucchini squash, and it is the safari variety. And I actually had to ask the garden staff because there are so many varieties of squash. It was honestly hard for me to figure out which was which. I did want to say there are a ton of variety of zucchinis, and from what I did on my research, you can cook them all in the same way. So, and that's my dog is trying to talk to us as well. She's really into this. So, patty pan squash, this one is a sunburst variety. And what I thought was really interesting about this is, I'll be honest with you, I had never cooked with one of these, nor had I ever seen one of these. But they say that patty pan squash is best picked when it's a few inches in size, so the smaller the better, and it grills up great whole if it's small. If you have a larger squash, like I have today, and the squash that I'm cooking with is actually larger as well, it's going to be better if you quarter it, chop it, grill it, slice it, that kind of thing. Again, I actually cooked with the skin today because I thought it still tasted delicious. But if you have a really dense skin, you're going to want to take that off, especially if you're feeding it to kids. Okay, so just in case you're wondering, what I'm doing over here is I'm just kind of sauteing. I actually cut up some yellow patty pan squash and I'm sauteing that with carrots, Brussels sprouts, sweet potatoes, and a little bit of red onion and garlic. And I'm just sauteing it in a little bit of olive oil. I put in about a tablespoon of lemon, a tablespoon of vegetable broth, and a tablespoon of olive oil on top of the other olive oil that I drizzled in. And then because the sweet potatoes and the carrots were taking a little bit longer to cook, I actually put some water in, and I'll probably pour a little bit more water in. So I'm just gonna kind of cook this down while we talk today. So I'm excited to eat this and excited to tell you guys all about what squash is. So what I did is I just poured a little bit more water in there, and we're just gonna let it cook down. You could honestly, if you wanted to throw in some Italian dressing, if you wanted to throw in a chicken broth, a vegetable broth, you could maybe even cook it down with beer. I think anything you wanted to do would still be really good. I normally use water just because if I use too much of a broth, I feel like it gets a little bit salty, for my taste anyway. And so I did throw in some fresh herbs in here. You could throw in any kind of thing you want. I know a lot of people like more of an acidic roast on their vegetable, so I did put in a little bit of that lemon juice for the acid. So, okay, so I want to just talk about, everybody's asking, what do we do with all the squash? So, if you have a lot of summer squash, it is super versatile. You could do tons of things. So, I'm thinking breads, muffins. You could blend it up, put it in a casserole. You could grate it and put it in a quiche. Salads, grilled, you can eat it raw. You can stuff it like a bell pepper, especially something like a patty pan or a large zucchini, the round ones. You could take some out of the middle and you could stuff it like a bell pepper and then cook it, and that could be really good. You could even grill it like that. You could take a zucchini and you could cut it in half and hollow it out like a boat and do something like a stuffed bell pepper in this. You could also do like a piece of mozzarella cheese in that, or some cream cheese, and then grill it or fry it as well if you want to do something like that. Let's see, if you want to do squash as a meat replacement, you can make them into patties, fritters. You can grind them up. You can grill them up, just sliced like a big zucchini slice, and grill it up that way and use that as kind of a meat replacement. If you want to eat them as a snack, you can bake them into chips. You can stuff them with mozzarella cheese and air fry them. If you want to hide them in your family's food because your family is so sick of eating zucchini, we've got things for that as well. So you can add them into brownies. You can make zucchini bread. You can make squash bread. You can put them in muffins, puree. You can make a puree with this and like some cauliflower, or this and like carrots, and you can actually mix it into to like lasagna, to mac and cheese. If your family is just really sick of eating zucchini or any kind of squash, you can definitely hide it in some things, and I think they could still really like it. So if your garden is just exploding and your neighbors are full and everybody has zucchini coming out their ears, you can also make a zucchini jam. You can make a zucchini relish, or like a squash relish. You can freeze it. There are definitely a lot of recipes online for freezing it. You can pickle it, you can shred it and freeze it, and you can also make a ton of zucchini bread, even like a chocolate chip zucchini bread, or you can make a patty pan squash zucchini bread, because this is technically a squash as well, and you can freeze it. Basically, the options are super endless. So if you have a lot of squash, that is a really good thing. So let's see. So today I'm going to make, and because I didn't want this to be a really long video, I have pre-made some things, but we're going to talk about the recipes and talk about the ways that you can make them custom at home. But I'm going to make squash 3 different ways, and we're going to talk about how truly versatile it is. This is I found this great post from Taste of Home magazine called 99 Ways to Use Up Zucchini and Summer Squash, and I'm going to link that below, as well as I'm going to link all the recipes I make below and a couple of my others that I really liked, but they just didn't make the cut today because they were going to take too long for me to cook. So today I'm going to demonstrate how to saute vegetables with squash, sweet potatoes, carrots, and Brussels, which I'm doing right over here. I am going to kind of talk you through making a squash fritter, which I've actually made over here, and they smell really good, and I'm really excited. So these are the squash fritters, and this I think could be a great meal replacement. You could put these on a bun. You could eat this with a big salad. I just think if you don't want to have meat, you could definitely substitute this in, because it seems like it would be really filling. So my coworker Katie actually gave me the recipe for the fritters, and I'm going to be sharing that below. Something that she noted that I thought was really cool is she takes the fritter and she actually rolls it into like a hush puppy, and then they fry it that way. I think if you want to do like a hush puppy in that way, you could grill it. You could do lots of different things. I actually air fried my fritters, So I followed the recipe to a T, but at the end, instead of frying them, I just sprayed them with olive oil and threw them in my air fryer, and I think they worked well. I haven't tried them yet, but I'm gonna go on a limb and say they're gonna be really good because they look good. So, and then you could make, and then the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to make it's called zucchini bruschetta. So I'm kind of a take on a tomato bruschetta, but I'm actually using this beautiful zucchini to make it. And so I just diced up the zucchini, and kind of if you've ever made bruschetta before, it's going to be really similar but super easy. What I like about this is if it's super hot and you just don't want to cook, you could make something like this. You could pair it with a salad. This is actually French bread that was like a little bit too hard. What's nice about this is you can use bread that like maybe it sat in your cabinet for a little bit too long, and it's going to be fancy, but it's just extra stuff that you don't want to throw away. So that's kind of a fun thing too. Okay, so for the zucchini bruschetta, you're gonna have 1 large tomato, or I actually used cherry tomatoes because that's what I had on hand. So feel free to kind of change it out depending on what you have at home, especially now when we're trying to go to the grocery store less and be out in the world less. I always encourage you, unless you're baking, to kind of switch things out for what you have at home, and most of the time it's gonna be okay. So just don't tell people at home, because some people get real weird about not following recipes. So just act like that's the way it was supposed to be, and I bet it'll be delicious. So I cut up about a cup of cherry tomatoes. This recipe calls for regular Roma. You can do whatever you want to do. 1 medium zucchini, finely chopped. I kind of chopped them into cubes. So let's see. 4 green onions, thinly sliced. I actually used a little bit of red onion and green onion. So that's that, and then I put some garlic in there as well. So it says 4 to 6 cloves of garlic. I use 6 because, as y'all know, if you've been watching these videos, I love garlic. So, and then 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, which are here. Salt, pepper, and then optionally you can add a feta cheese. Now, I don't really love feta, but if you wanted to do something else, you could. I actually didn't have feta today, so I'm going to be leaving that out of the recipe. And then your bread. And it calls for Italian French bread, but like I said, if you have like some sandwich bread that's getting kind of old, you could throw it in either, you know, your toaster oven or your oven and get it kind of crispy. So this is, hopefully you can hear that. It's pretty crispy. So that's all you want to do with that. If you want to put a little butter on it, you can. I personally just like the acidity of this recipe, so I didn't put any butter on my bread. And then it calls for if you have any fresh basil or fresh herbs. I actually put fresh basil in here from my garden, and fresh thyme as well. So those are kind of chopped up within. So this recipe is super easy and super customizable. If you don't like lemon, you could put lime juice. It's like super customizable, and you can kind of change it how you want. So in a large bowl, I'm gonna combine my zucchini, and my hands are clean, I just washed them. Tomato, and this is my lemon juice, my olive oil. It smells so good. Okay, and then I'm gonna do all of my onions, and like I said, I kind of subbed out the onions. So I have a little bit of red onion, a little bit of your green onions, basil, my garlic is in there, as well as my fresh thyme. So that, and then I'm gonna try to get it away from the microphone so I don't bang around too much. So this is like as easy as it gets. You're just gonna toss this together. Now, if you have a couple people coming over for a socially distanced, like barbecue or something, you could put this in the fridge and let it set for a little bit. And what it would do is it would just make all those juices get together, and it would be really tasty. Especially with the zucchini being raw, I feel like it makes it a little bit softer if you let it set. But if you like that crunch, and zucchini is totally edible eating raw, by the way, just in case you were worried about it, you can take this zucchini bruschetta, and I am just going to kind of put it on my bread, just like so, and it's really pretty, and I'll show you what it looks like. But this could really like look fancy, and it could really taste really delicious and summery, especially if you don't want to cook, but it's super easy. So hopefully you can see that, but it's very pretty, and I'm actually going to take a picture of this plate, and I will link it below, and also put it on our Facebook page as well. But this is something you could do if you just have zucchini come out your ears, or if you just don't want to cook because it's too hot. You can make something like this, and it could really be a showstopper. So there's that. And so the other things I made today was for my sauteed vegetables. I never use a recipe, so I just kind of cut vegetables up until my heart's content. So I used like 3 whole carrots and peeled them. I used 2 small sweet potatoes and peeled them. I used just a handful of Brussels sprouts and I just quartered them. Obviously I washed everything before, and then I used, I would say, majority of a patty pan. This is what's left. And I washed it, and this patty pan didn't have really a dense skin, so I just cut it up into kind of like little sections, and I threw it in here, and I'll kind of show you what it looks like. And again, I just put a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of olive oil, and a little bit of vegetable broth, and cooked it down, added a little bit of water, and I think I'm about to eat it here. I think it's almost done, so I'll show you what it looks like. So it's very pretty, and I love the colors. I'm gonna see if I can tip this so you can see it. But as you can see, the colors are beautiful. And it's just a really nice mix. And the vegetables really shine, especially the squash. Now I did throw in some fresh herbs, and I threw in a little bit of Italian seasoning, but like, again, like sky's the limit. You could do anything you want for this recipe. Okay, so for this final recipe, this is actually my friend and coworker Katie. She gave me this recipe and she was telling me about it, and it sounded super delicious. So I wanted to make it today, especially as a nice meat replacement. What's nice about this too is I was reading online, and I feel like for most of these zucchini fritters you make, and it's kind of a basic recipe, you know, eggs, flour. You could probably substitute out and do this vegan. I have not made that before, but if you were wanting to use like a vegan egg, you could probably do something like that. Your zucchini. And then the one thing I did want to note about this recipe, it's really important, sorry, my dog also agrees it's really important, to squeeze out your zucchini. So you're going to take your zucchini and shred it up, and you want to put salt on it and let it set for about 10 minutes. So what that's going to do is that salt is going to take the water kind of out of your zucchini, and then you're going to want to squeeze it. So I put it in one of those little colanders, and I did this, and I kind of let it set over a glass dish. And then I took a spoon and I just squeezed out the water and squeeze. You could also put it in a paper towel and squeeze it that way. You could do cheesecloth, whatever you want to do. You want to get out as much water as possible so that you can get that crispy fritter that you're always dreaming of. So let's see. So it says about 1 pound of zucchini. I actually half the recipe, and I think that would work just as well. Also, if you wanted to make these, and like if you have a ton of zucchini at your house, or patty pan squash or yellow squash or anything, I think you could make this in advance. And then what I would do is I would either air fry them or cook them up, and then I would wrap them all up really tightly, and then you could freeze them. I'm guessing they probably freeze for about a month or so. Anything longer than that, you might get a little freezer burn. But especially if you wanted to wrap them all up and put them in a container and then freeze them for later, I think you could probably. Now I haven't tried this, so if you do try this and it does or doesn't work, please write below and let us know. But I think you could easily freeze them and have them in a different time. If you wanted to make all the batter in advance too, I think if you were having people come over for a barbecue or something like that, you could do that as well. So it tells for 1 pound of zucchini, and then the kosher salt. And like I said, you're gonna need to get all that moisture out. It's really important. And then you're gonna do 1 egg, a half cup of flour, 3 green onions, and then a teaspoon of fresh thyme and fresh basil. Again, if you don't have these fresh vegetables in your garden, these fresh herbs, I encourage you to use something that you have, or even use something dry. It's okay. It's going to be okay, I promise. I know sometimes we feel the pressure to go out and buy that $3 little plastic container herbs, but you can really sub out other things and it'll be just as delicious. Half teaspoon of lemon zest. I did not have a fresh lemon on hand, so I actually just tossed in a tiny bit of lemon juice. And you could do that, or you could leave it out. I think it'll be okay. 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, and then a little bit of oil to fry it in. Now, if you use an air fryer like I did, I just sprayed it with olive oil. But if you want to fry it, or even if you want to just spray it with a little bit of oil and bake it, I think it would be just as good. I just don't think you're going to get that crispiness that you get with an air fryer or when you fry it on the stove. So this is a super easy recipe. So once you get all that moisture out of the zucchini, all you're going to do is you're going to add your egg, your flour, and then all the other goodies, your herbs, your onions, your garlic, all that stuff. You're going to mix it together. You're going to make a patty. And then I actually made these really large because I plan on eating these kind of like as a meat replacement. But my coworker said she used to do them as fritters. You could do that too. And then you are going to then either fry it, bake it, or air fry it. And it depends on what you're doing. If you're going to fry it, it's going to be 4 to 6 minutes on each side. I air fried it. It took me about 5 minutes on each side, and I flipped them. And that's it. I will plug all these recipes below. The nice thing about this recipe too specifically is that it had a really delicious dipping sauce. I just didn't have time to make today, but I'm hoping to make it before I eat these. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope that y'all learned something about squash, and don't feel like you have to eat squash the same way every day because there's so many options. So thanks again for watching, and if you have any specific vegetables that you'd like us to spotlight or any questions about vegetables, please always feel like you can write them in the comments below, or you can also message us on our Facebook page, or you can also go on our website and email us as well. So again, my name is Tamara Maddox, and thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and plant, and we hope that your gardens are doing really well this year. Thanks again.